بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. It's quite pleasant and amazing day having more than 600 students from different universities of the different health sciences colleges gathering together today and presenting their interest in research. This clearly indicates that they believe in the importance of research in medical sciences in particular. It is very important for all kinds of sciences, in fact. And fortunately that this gathering is happening for the first time at the new city of the King Khalid University, and that adds more pleasant to the to the meeting today. As you all know that medical knowledges are dynamic and frequently change over time based on the findings from different researchers. We as a physicians, when we treat and manage our patients, we depend on strong, good evidence. And the evidence always comes from good, honest research. So the research is really important for all kinds of sciences. Today, we will have 8 lectures from eminent presenters and 3 workshops. And tomorrow, inshallah, it will be the student day. And we are going to have 12 oral presentations and 62 poster presentations. And now I'll present our first speaker, Professor Abdullah Saeed Asiri, who's a graduate of the College of Medicine, of this College of Medicine. At the time, it was King Saud University, Abha branch. He graduated with honor, and he's eminent interventional cardiologist and former dean of the College of Medicine at King Khalid University. He's going to speak about identification of research problem. Welcome, Prof. Abdullah.
Bismillah. Islam. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. صباح الخير. First of all, I would like to welcome everybody in Abha, King Khalid University. And it's a very pleasant moment when you see the medical students and health sciences students from all over the kingdom coming today to improve their skills and improve their knowledge about how to conduct a proper research. The way I look at it is usually, I call it a research journey, and the research journey is a very interesting journey. And to make it really interesting and fruitful and with good outcomes, you have to have and achieve certain knowledge and skills. And that's the aim of this coming 2 days, today and tomorrow, is try to give the students certain limits of knowledge and skills that will make this research journey an interesting and fruitful journey. To come up with a meaningful research, there is a chain of actions. There is certain chains that will make this is an outstanding, this is a very good, this is an average, and this is a poor research. Is the voice clear? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, what is the first important thing? And actually, it's not in my definition. In the definition of the researchers, the most important first step in any research is identification of research problem. And that was the task that your colleagues gave me today, to try to give you some skills and knowledge about this task. Identification of a research problem is the most important and the first step in any research. And today we are going to shed some light how to identify, how to formulate, and how to come up with a good research problem, which is between brackets how to come with a good question. And this step actually will determine the following steps. It will tell you what type of research you are going to do, what type of analysis you will do, and how you are going to conduct it. So it's a very important step. Next slide, please. Should I do it from here or from there? Thank you. So that's our learning objective today, is to identify the importance of formulating a research problem, list source of research problems, where do you get the ideas from, and also to explain how to select a research problem, describe the steps in formulating the problem, and then demonstrate and formulate a research objectives. Next slide, please. Good. So what is a research problem? A research problem is any question that you want to be answered, challenged, or to be known. So this is, the question will move you from the unknown field to the known field. That's basically the research problem. However, not all questions can be transferred to a research. Some of them is a known facts, or something doesn't need to have a research to prove that point. To formulate a research problem, it is not an easy task. Actually, it requires good knowledge about the topics, some expertise, and some skills in the research field. Next, please. So we look at the research problem. It's something that fills the gap between what is and what should be, or between the unknown and the known. It can arise from the source, usually. Where do you get your research ideas from? It comes from evolution of theories, and this is the history of medicine. If you look back at the history of medicine, anything in history, medications, interventions, procedures, surgeries, experiments, it starts in the old days, and then the new scientist builds upon the previous experience. And this is probably the most important source of research problem, is what was in the literature in the past, what can you improve, what new things you can create. Go back to the previous slide, please. Previous slide. No, that's the forward. Previous slide, yes. Next. Okay. Or it can come from your colleagues, from your supervisors during discussions, or it comes from literature review. We are coming across an articles or reviewing a topic, and then ideas comes. Is this medicine, can we use it? Is this procedure can be tried? And this is how the research questions start to formulate. And from the day-to-day experience, and this is especially applied to medicine, when you see your patients, you see some challenges, some difficulties, some possibilities, impossibilities, and then you try to solve it. And this is where research ideas comes usually. Next slide, please. So the 4 P's are the source of your research: people, patients, your colleagues, or it could be from a certain phenomena or a problem that you are trying to solve, or certain programs. Next, please. Formulating a research problem is exactly this. It tells you where do we go from here. And this is the most important first step. If you start correct, everything will be correct. If you start wrong, it is very difficult, and it's actually very difficult to compensate later. You cannot go back and change and formulate a new problem. You have to start solid, clear, precise, and then you move. Next. Also, the research problem or the research question will tell you about the economics, how much your research will cost, the cost effectiveness. Can you do it? Or you can't with your current facilities? Next. So, research problem is the foundation of the research study. So all this introduction to convince you, this is the most important step in research. Okay. And also we said previously that the research problem, when you formulate it, it will dictate and tells you everything about the research, what type of study can be done, the strategy, the instruments, analysis, everything. Next. There is a difference between research and non-researchable problems. There are some problems which cannot be researched, which just need an administrative issues or manpower or. Next, please. This is probably one of the most important slides that you should keep in mind when you start planning a research and formulating a problem or a question. These are the things that you should consider and keep in mind. Go back, please. Stay there until I tell you next, please. Okay, next. Okay, stay there. So it should be in a field with an interest. You should be interested in the field. You cannot do research in a field which you have no interest in it. It will make your life easy. It will make your productivity better. And also, you should have some expertise. You don't need to be expert of the world in that topic, but in your pathway, it could be the first steps that you should have some expertise. And not only you, research usually based on a team. It is not a solo phenomena. It's not only on you. It's with your team. So you might have not experience or expertise in that field, but you have your seniors, your tutors, your colleagues who are expertise in that place. Also, it should be relevant. It should be relevant, something that is useful and relevant to your society, your community, and to your center. The data should be available. Sometimes you have excellent ideas. There is no data, there is no research. You stop there. You should have all the concepts and the measures. The magnitude of the problem that you are going to study should be meaningful and important and sizable. And one of the most important things, I usually leave the most important to the last thing, is ethics. It should be acceptable ethically, proved ethically, and it should go with your ethical issues. Next slide, please. Now, how do you prioritize your research problem? Sometimes, especially the medical students and health science students, when they come with too many ideas. How do you prioritize? This is the most important, second important, third important. It depends on the following. How relevant is the problem? How important? Size and severity of the health problem. Is there duplication or not? Was it done before or not? It is not very useful to do this, to duplicate the same things that was done in the past. One of the major and the main important things in a good research, it should add to the current literature. How much does it add? It doesn't. This is where we argue. But if it doesn't add anything, then it is not qualified as a proper research. Feasibility, sometimes you have bright ideas, cannot be done. So do not challenge yourself and the current facilities and availabilities. Do you have enough manpower, time, resources? Applicability should be applied, and it should give you a proper solution for a current problem. Okay, next please. Should be cost effective. This is very important, that what you paid for the research is worth the outcomes. And timelines, tube or pathway. This is very important, especially for the newcomers to the research field. And I usually get medical students before they graduate, 2 months, and they said, can we join you in a project? We have to have a research project and we have to present it, we have to publish it in 2 months. And this is every year it happens. So what I tell them, it will take us 1 year from now, so don't rush me. If you plan a research, you should know what time you need to have. Some research might need only a month. Some might need years. Ethics, we talked about it. And it should be politically acceptable where you live. Next, please. Next. Okay. Sorry, the yellow thing doesn't appear clearly there, but these are the steps in formulating a problem. First, start with a big, broad topic or field, like I'm interested in medicine. And then you go dissect and go to subfields, like I want to do something in cardiology. And then go to a specific problem, say I will focus on ischemic heart disease. This is how you should taper your thinking from the broad base to the tip of the research question. And then after that, after you select that, you have to assess objectives. You have to write it clearly, formulate it, and then plan it, and double check your steps and start. This is the first step in research. Don't jump to the next step until you do this properly. If you do this properly, everything later will be very smooth and easy. Next, please. Okay, now we are going to talk about research objectives. Now we know what is the research problem, which is a research question. We know how to formulate it. Now after you do this, you have to formulate a research objectives. This is also the second important steps in performing a good research. So what is the objective? It is a clear, specific goals you set out to attain your study. So I'm going to study specifically the effect of this medicine on this disease by utilizing this instrument, utilizing this statistical analysis, reaching to this conclusion. There are two types of objective. There is the main objective and specific objective. The main objective, some they call it in the trials primary goals and secondary goals, is the main topic that you are going to discuss. The secondary one are the specific things in that main topic that you are going to discuss and challenge and question and prove or disprove. Next, please. So when we formulate our research objectives, these are the two main objective as we talked about it, and the sub-objectives. Next, please. Next. Okay. Your sub-objective should be written clearly and numerically. 1, 2, 3. These are the things I am looking for. Like what we say in the primary objective, the effect of this medicine on this disease. In the secondary objective, we say, okay, how much does it affect? How much dose? What duration? For how long? All the specific things that will come in real practice.
5 minutes remaining.
Good. So, use action-oriented words when you write your objective. Start with to determine, to find out, to ascertain, to measure, and to explore. These words, when you use it in the objective, it will dictate what type of study you will do. And it has to be written clearly in the objectives. Next, please. So what's the function of research objective? It makes you focus, narrow down your thinking, avoid collection of unnecessary data, and organize your research pathway. Next. These are characteristic of good objectives. It should be clear, complete, specific, main variables are clear, directions are clear. I think this is the last slide, yes. So when you formulate a good problems, a good question, going through these maps, you will come up with a reasonable and good research. If you make any failure in these steps, all the next steps will be like the domain effect. It will be a negative experience. Thank you very much for listening. And I guess we leave the discussion at the end of the sessions, or? Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prof. Abdullah Asiri, for your informative lecture. Our next lecture will going to be with Dr. Ali Sahel Asiri, titled by Carrying Out the Lecture Review. Dr. Abdullah Ali Asiri, Chairman of the Department of Pediatric College of Medicine, KKU University, Consultant Pediatric Pulmonologist, Abha Maternity and Children Hospital, Saudi Arabia. He having baccalaureate degree in medicine and surgery, King College University, and Saudi and Jordan, and Arabian Board of Pediatric, Fellowship of Pediatric and Pulmonology, United States. European Respiratory Society diplomate in respiratory in pediatric respiratory medicine. Welcome, Dr. Ali Sahel Asiri.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me well? I think I'll use this. Thank you very much, Abdurrahman and Professor Abdullah Shatur. So it's always very difficult to talk after Professor Abdullah Asiri, but I will try my best. Can I have help, please? I'm waiting for the slides to show. So meanwhile, I will give just advice for the attendees, especially novice people who are starting research. So the lectures today are connected to each other. So Professor Abdullah is talking about he has talked about the research question and formulating a very clear, crystal clear research topic, and you formulate a research question. And I always say that the research question is not a part of proposal, it's not a part of scientific paper. It is just for you as a researcher to guide you. And the second part, which I will talk about, is the literature review. So you have a crystal clear pathway that will guide you to do a very, very excellent, informative, great literature review. Because it's the publications are overwhelming. If you count how many publications have been published in COVID-19, which has been around for 2.5 years, it's overwhelming. So you cannot read even 0.5% of these publications. So you have to have a very crystal clear pathway that will guide you to do literature review, to ask for resources, to design your study design, and to ask for personnel and patients also. So my part is the objective literature review. So literature review is a huge part of doing good research, either writing proposal and asking for money from people who sponsor the research, or for publication later on if you are trying to publish your paper, and always unpublished research is not done. So you have to publish your paper and share your ideas with people, and it has to be in a very solid scientific way. So again, it's an objective, concise, critical summary of published research literature. So there are two types of literature review: describing literature, summarizing the conclusion of literature, which is not enough. So you have to have a critical critical documentations of these results or critical description of these results. So it's two parts, and there is a very excellent book called I Say and They Say in academic writing. It's a very excellent book. So you have to mention the people's conclusions and results and methodology, and you have to have your opinion. So they say, I say. And it's formulating the relationship between the studies, the weaknesses, the strength of the studies, and to identify the gap that you are looking for. In terms of types of literature review, there are four main types. If you are doing master or PhD degree, the literature review is one of the chapters of your work, so you have to do it. But 90% of our work as a biomedical personnel, we do literature review as a part of journal study or manuscript introduction. So you find the literature review in manuscript or the publications that we do most of the time in the introduction. So it's a part of introduction. So you should know how to write a very concise, summarized literature review that will help you to publish a paper, or as a part of proposal. If you are proposing your work for people who are sponsoring the research work, or who are approving the research from ethical standpoint. So this is an example of a literature review that is embedded in the introduction of a published paper. This is one of the New England papers. So you find the literature in the introduction. So it's very, very concise. And they chose the most relevant seminal papers that are very focused and specific to the topic. On the other hand, there is something called the standalone review article. If there is a mature topic, for example, pediatric COVID-19, Professor Abdul Wahid and his team, they published a paper about the COVID-19 in children after around 8 or 9 months of starting the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a mature topic that you can summarize to people, so people can use it in as citations and others. So, but it's very difficult. You have to have enough expertise to do such document. So what are the purpose? And I'm saying the things that Professor Abdullah has mentioned, but they are very, very important. Sometimes they are easy to say, but very difficult to use and very difficult to implement in your daily practice of doing research. So again, to identify the known about the topic, the background, you have to have a very excellent couch to your work. So we don't do research from vacuum. So you have to have a very, very solid couch for your research. So people should not question your extension or journey of choosing research question. And to identify the unknown, and again to choose a couch and to have a very solid background for your research, and to identify the methods, because sometimes we do research to answer the question that has been answered by a different methodology. So if you have a very rare disease and there are only certain case reports and case series, and you have a good number of cases, you can write a case or retrospective description of these cases, because the literature is having a gap of describing a group of patients. So research is always strong with high N number of patients. Selected case reports and case series always have huge weaknesses because the generalizability of case reports are limited. And avoid replication. Replicating science is not always bad. So you can replicate science to show people that this is generalizable among Middle East, among European, Asian, whatever. But it's not always strong. So you have to be very careful, and you have to have a very good mentor who knows how to criticize the literature and what are the things that are replicable. Again, you have to have some skills. And one of the important skills of doing literature review is knowing how to read papers. So you have to skim the paper. Is the paper fitting your research goal, your research question, to include it in your literature review or not? And you have to identify the exact question of the paper. And one of the, this is the anatomy of article, and I'm sure most of the audience know the anatomy of the article, but I present it here because it's very, very, very important. So we have, the literature review is not part of a published manuscript. No, it's always included in the introduction. So what are the important, if you have 5 seconds or 10 seconds to read a manuscript published paper, the most important part of it is the last paragraph of the introduction. It's always summarize the objectives, and the research question is always implicit in the last paragraph of the introduction. So you have to know the research question. It's not always stated as a question with a question mark. It's implicit on the last paragraph of the introduction. And the first paragraph of the discussion is always answer to the question. So these are the two most important part of the manuscript, published manuscript. Next, please. Again, it's a long process and it needs a lot of skills. So you cannot teach in a 30 minutes or 20 minutes session. So it needs a lot of skills. One of the skills is how to search for a published literature. So there are a lot of search engine. And Dr. Abdullah Sabani in the coming lecture will teach you how to organize this process. And I'm sure one of the workshops will talk about the search engine, how to utilize them, how to use them in a very informative and time-wasting way, because again, it's overwhelming. And then you move, next please, and you have to organize the papers. Organization is a huge part of doing literature review. You don't want to look here and there between PDFs and a lot of printed out papers. So you have to organize the literature review and stay organized until the end. Next, please. Next. Okay, and again, it's not only reading and summarizing the literature, it's reading and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about the conclusion of X researcher? What do you think about the methodology that the X researcher has used? So it's not they say, it's they say and I say. Next, please. Dr. Abdullah has shown this, which is a very, very important backbone of selecting research gap. So you start from a big topic, childhood asthma, and you go narrow. Research problem is epidemiology of childhood asthma among school-age children. Research question, what is the epidemiology of childhood asthma among school-age children in Abha City, regional? So you have to be very, very specific. It's very helpful. And instead of having, you cannot answer multiple questions in one single paper. This is impossible. So you have to start right, otherwise you will end up with a huge number of variables that you don't know how to deal with them. So research always based on previous work. And again, it's a very comprehensive, you have to do very comprehensive search, and always start with known and go to the unknown and identify the whole of research, the whole in the research that's testable or researchable. This is the introduction in a manuscript that's published. So it's a very small, tiny part of literature review. So you start with a background information, and then you narrow it down, categories of research, and then categories and studies closest to your research, and then hypothesis statement or research question. And again, it's not a clear research question in the introduction, it's just implicit. So it's ضمني. You don't see a research question in a manuscript or published manuscript, at least in biomedical. In terms of looking to the literature, you have to dissect the literature in a very, very smart way, and always work smart, not harder. Working smarter is very helpful, and it's you consume your time instead of going there. So there are always a major work that people depend on in any certain topic. So if you want to study pediatric COVID-19, so there are 3 or 4 seminal papers that are mostly published in a very high caliber journals, and you go from there. And the people, they built on this major work. So studies that respond to or build on the major works. So you have to identify the major players in the field. Without knowing the major scientists, the major players, sometimes they call them major players or scientists in the field, first you will get tired from replication of science in a very small, tiny papers. So you have to identify the seminal papers that the people, they built their research on. And then you go from there. One of the simple way to find a major players and the major studies in your field is to use Google Scholar. So Google Scholar has something called cited by. So cited by, if it's 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, this is a good number of citations. So a scholarly cited work has cited this paper. So this is some papers, citation 2, citation 1, no citation. So always try to identify, and even the names. You see some names that are always coming up if you look for like COVID-19 children.
5 minutes.
Okay. Researchers who are always interested to search in this topic. So this is one of the keys. There are many keys, and I'm sure the workshop presenters will tell you more about this. And again, PubMed is one of the famous search engines that we use. Next, please. So this is, so you have a lot of PDFs, you have a lot of files that are in a different categories of the research topic that you are studying. And again, organization is a very, very, very important. These two techniques are one of the techniques that people use to organize the literature. The first one is called Annotated Bibliography. So you summarize the study 1, a series etal, concluded that so and so and so and so, and the year of publication. And the study 2, 2, 3, 4. This is not a literature review. This is just part 1 of literature review. They call it Annotated Bibliography. So you don't say anything. You just summarize what people have said. And the other way is to have Excel file with a matrix. So you summarize the study, year of publication, the research question, the category of topic that that the researchers study, and the main result, main conclusion, limitations, and others. So these ways will help you to organize yourself. You don't want at the end of your study to try to remember, where do I get this information from? And you confuse the citations, and you end up with a mess or something that's confusing the reader. And always, 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 the writers are good readers, and they always try to make the reader's life easy. And the second message is, easy read paper does not mean easy write paper. So you have to have you have to have a very good skills, even a language skills that will help readers to understand smoothly. Again, this is the summary of conducting literature review. And there are certain skills that I want to open the door for you as a novice or researchers that are beginning doing biomedical research. There are certain, next please. So again, the literature review is not a linear process. You don't go one direction. It's a loopy cycling process. So you read, you summarize, you formulate a question, you go back and read, you do the study, you go back and read. So it's not a linear process. Do not expect that you're doing a literature review in one sitting. No, it's a back and forth process. Next, please. So work on it before, during, and after the study, and always, always practice makes perfection. 2 minutes remaining. Okay, I'm ending. So there are certain basic language skills that are very, 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 very important. And there is always a recipe for everything. And writing literature review, writing manuscript paper has a certain language skills that you should know. There is no excuse. Paragraph structure, you start with the topic, and then details, and then conclusion. So in English, a paragraph is independent part of everything. So introduction, introductory sentence, details, and then conclusion. But you have to have some connection between the paragraph. So you polish the paragraphs after you finish the literature review. Tenses used and structure. So past tense, simple present tense, and present perfect are the most common. 99% of the time, the people use these tenses. So for facts, you use present tense. If you are talking about something in the past, specific in a certain time, you use past tense. Present perfect, you are talking about a group of studies or conclusions that are happened and there are still the conclusion is still valid. So several researchers have concluded that. Using the right transitions always very helpful to the reader. Example of the transitions are in contrast, so you are changing direction. In addition, the same direction. So always try to make story out of it. Always try to make story. Use transitions. Use pointing words that will help the reader. So in summary, writing a great literature review needs focused research question, back to the focused research question, and systematic, organized ways of searching the literature. Start organized and stay organized until the end.
Time is over.
And then organization, synthesis of the literature is always, always critical. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for these technical problems.
Our next speaker is Dr. Abdullah Sabani, who is Associate Professor and Consultant of Public Health and the Department of Family and Community Medicine, College of Medicine, King Khalid University. And he is the co-CEO for Assistant Medical Services Medical City KKU. He is the Director of Health Research Consultancy Office, Institute Research and Consulting Studies, and he is the KKU Director of the Saudi Board of Preventive Medicine at Asir. He will speak about the scientific citation. Welcome, Dr. Abdullah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. Can we have the slides, please? Okay. First of all, we started with the research problem and identifying and specifying the research question. So this is the first step. And the second step is to search for different studies and for the main and major studies that can answer this question. And this is the next step. And while you're reviewing all of these references and all of these studies, you need to cite these references in your literature review, and you need at the same time to write your references. And citing your references and having a reference list in your literature review is what we call it scientific citation. And there is a specific, there are specific rules and specific regulations in how to cite references, how to write references in your paper or in your literature review, and you have to stick with these rules and regulations. Otherwise, the editors or the journals or the publishers, they will refuse to publish your papers until you stick with these rules again, okay? So we will try to have an overview on how to cite and refer to our resources. So the session objective today will be we'll try to know what is meant by citation or references. We'll try to know why we cite a reference. We have to have some examples on citation and its component, the difference between a reference list and bibliography, and also what is when we have what we call it reference style. So we'll start with what is citations and referencing, why we cite, what is the different styles, giving some examples, and then what is the difference between reference list and bibliography, and at the end, how to cite or reference your citations in 1 second or in a whole 1 year. We will give you 2 options. So first of all, what is scientific citation? It is a process to refer to all the materials that you have read about a specific topic in your literature review or on your study. Next. Okay, so it's a way of giving credit to someone's thinking or writing. You have read lots of studies, so you have to refer to these studies and sources of information. We must attribute everything and every piece of work or materials we are using to its author, to those who discover it or to those who write it, okay? And we should mark all the materials when we use it as a citation and give the full identifications of the reference at the end of the paper. So when you, I think most of you have read a book or a paper, and when you look to the book or a paper, you will find in the text, okay, while you are reading, some citations, we call it citations, which is inside the paper, inside the text itself, whether it is a number or the name of the authors and the date of publication, which refers that this specific information has been taken from a specific reference, okay? And then at the end of the book or chapter of the book or at the end of the paper, you will find the list of references, the list of references. So if you look with me here, we can see here, this is what we call it in-text citations. You mention some informations, paraphrase it, and put the thing referring to the reference, what we call it in-text citation here. And then you have a reference list, and you write here the full informations of your reference in a specific format that we are going to discuss today in detail, inshallah, in a few minutes. While you are doing your in-text citations, there are different ways. One of them is to write the name of the author and the year of publication. Other ways is to write just a number, 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? Whatever you are taking from the different sources of information, whether it is a quotation, okay, a specific statement for a specific authors, or a paraphrasing idea, you paraphrase the idea, and even if you paraphrase it, you have to write the citations here and refer it and include it in your reference list. طيب. Here is another example where we are using numbers instead of the name of the author, and this is what we call it numeric style of citations, and then references, and it's organized by numbers, and we give all the informations about the reference we have consulted. Why we cite and reference? To avoid what we call it academic dishonesty. Any idea or any information or any fact or anything you have consulted or read about it, you have to refer it. So theft or stealing ideas of others is not acceptable at all, okay? So we have to avoid charges of plagiarism, so you have to reference, to have credit or to credit our sources of information and ideas, and also for the readers to be able to identify if they need all the necessary original articles that you have consulted and to go back to read it. Also to show the depth and quality of your references that you have consulted and you have read about your topic. So if we assess your references and we found your references is a high quality and excellent studies, and it's the major studies that can answer your questions, that means you are expert, you are doing your job in a perfect way, you are consulting the good studies about the field you are searching for. But if your references is not good, that means all your papers not that good. Also to validate our argument and discussions with including strong studies to indicate the origin of the material and sources of research and for future reading as well. Type of references. It can be a book, a journal, an article. It can be a newspaper or a magazine, a website, a conference papers or proceedings, governmental or reports, publication reports, electronic sources, CDs, ROM, databases, website, thesis, even unpublished work. Even unpublished work, you have to write a reference for it. You should reference. What to reference? What are the things that we have to write it in the reference list? Author's name is an important thing to write. The title of the book or the title of the article, journal name, if you reference an article, the date and year of publication, the place of publication, the edition if it is a book, the periodicities informations regarding volume, issue, and page numbers. All of these are organized in a specific style in the reference list for each reference. And we'll try to see some examples. Citation or reference style. A citation style or reference system is what is a standardized system for referring to materials used in your writing or in your paper. And there are several different citation styles developed independently by professional organizations. And we ended up with hundreds and hundreds of different styles. What is your job when you write a paper? You should think about to which journal you are going to publish your paper. And then you have to use the same style, of that paper. Specific journal, they have a specific styles, they are adopting a specific styles of referencing, and you have to write your paper and the reference list according to this style. And we have many examples. We'll try to bring 2 or 3 examples for it. In general, the styles are different, are divided into two main categories, and there are hundreds of categories under these styles. The author date styles and the numeric styles. Author date style is when you say according to Myers, and then here, the author date styles. When you write the name of the authors, and then between 2 brackets, the date of publications and the page number, and then you continue in the text itself to continue the sentence that has been taken from this author. Other way, you will include the name of the author also inside the 2 brackets. This is what we call it in-text citation inside the text. And then you will have the reference list organized alphabetically from A to Y. The numeric style is using numbers here. So you mention, for example, according to Myers, then 1, the reasons for so and so. So you are putting a number here, and then the next reference is number 2, 3, and 4. And then at the end you put the reference list, and the one that has been mentioned here is also have the same number in reference list, and you mention all the informations about the book, for example. This is in general. We have different styles. We have Harvard, we have American Psychological, we have Vancouver, Modern Language Associations, Chicago, and many others, hundreds and hundreds of reference styles. So your job is actually to know exactly what type of referencing the journal is adopting, and you follow this style. Someone might ask, okay, how I can write it myself? If you are going to write it myself, you have to know that the reference list or referencing have 2 main components: the bibliographic elements and the punctuation marks. And let us have one example here. This is a reference, has been written. Here, the bibliographic elements include different elements. One is the name of the authors. You will mention the name of the authors in a specific way, okay? Whether the surname and then the initials for each one, and then you have to write, for example, the title of the article, and then the name of the journal, the date of publication, the volume of publication, and then the number of pages where you have taken your information from. So these parts is the bibliographic elements. It differs from style to style, okay? And how they write each element in a different way. For example, here if you see, it has been abbreviated. It doesn't include the whole name of the journal, okay? Some other style, they use the whole name of the journal, etc., etc. So these are the bibliographic elements. And the other part that we should think of is the punctuation marks, okay? The punctuation marks here, it's the comma here, the space here, the full stop here, the space here, the semicolon, the colon, the hyphen. These also are specific regulations for each style. Sometimes other style, they use here a comma. Other styles, they use just only a space. Other style, they use a colon. So you have to stick with the rules of the journals according to their style exactly. So when you do it yourself, it's a huge tasks you are going to do for each style. And if you have 90 reference or 100 reference, it will take a long time to do it specifically as it's required. Here, the Harvard style of reference. These are the components that we have to mention it in our reference, and here how we write it. As an example, the name of the author, comma, and then initial, full stop, between two brackets, the date of publications, and then quotation marks, and including the title, and then the journal.
5 minutes remaining.
Okay. Volume, issue in a specific way between two brackets, and then numbers of pages. Vancouver style, one of the common also styles that we are using. The same story. There are specific components we have to mention, and we have to write it in a specific organizations. So what is the difference between when we say reference list and bibliography? You should know this. Reference list is the list of sources we have cited in our text, arranged in order as it's appear in the text, okay? So every resource you are consulting, you have to put it in the reference. While bibliography is just, you don't need to have in-text citations, but you have to mention all the sources of information that has been consulted, but not specifically cited in your text or in your work, okay? And it's arranged usually alphabetically by the author's surname. There are many citation management systems, electronic systems. I highly recommend all of you to try to get some training on how to use some of them. EndNote or Mendeley or Reference Manager, Zetro, RefWorks, etc. It's of invaluable part of your research journey that you have to know. It saves huge time and huge efforts, and at the same time it's easy to use. And it can organize your library, it can organize your papers, it can organize your ideas and thoughts, it can help you to write references, to amend the references, to modify references, and whether in the text or in the reference list automatically without any efforts. So by the end of this day, all the students should download by the end of this day one of these program. Mendeley is a free. You can download it and try to get some training and see some videos on how to use it. It will help you a lot. And there are lots of features that is helpful for you. At the end, remember, providing the references in correct style with accurate bibliographic details is your author's responsibility. You are the one who is responsible, if you are doing a research, to write references in a correct style and to reference every work you have consulted. Editors, if you didn't do it this right, they will reject your manuscript and you will take time more and more to amend your references and changes and modify it a little bit to be acceptable format. The last things I would like to mention here, save your time and effort by using some of the citation systems and digital softwares that will help you to do your job in a perfect way, inshallah. الله يعطيكم العافية وشاكر لكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thanks, Dr. Abdullah, for being on time. Now we will open the floor for discussion. We have 10 minutes only for discussion. And I wish that if somebody has a question, to present himself first and then ask. So the floor is open for discussion. Yes. Dr. Mansour, we have mic here for mic.
During this time, actually, I thank Dr. Abdullah Sab'ani for his informative lecture. And I want to just say we have some videos about Mendeley citation, how to do it. You can use it and you can see those videos in YouTube. Thank you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. دكتور منصور الغامدي, Head of the Anatomy Department. I would like to thank the organizing committee and the speakers and the chairperson as well. My question to Prof. Abdullah. Most of the attendees here are students, and through my experience, some students, they come to me with the very difficult questions. I think the attendance can, but I think there is a problem somewhere there. So my question to Prof. Abdullah, some students, they come to my office, they come up with their research problem and research questions. There is no such thing that is not a true question or a problem. All the problem questions are true, but some of them really, it's difficult to answer by them at this stage. So what's your advice not to disappoint them, to encourage them to carry on, keep this question in their minds for the future? Because I'm sure taking into consideration they're busy with the facilities, it's really difficult to answer this question or to do the experiment for this question. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good question. My answer to this is ask him to get even more difficult question and encourage him to do so. The thing that when the medical student comes, they are very enthusiastic. They are full of energy. They are competent. They are challenging, and they are competitors. They just need the seniors and their mentors to guide them. And once you guide them to say, okay, do whatever you want. What is the thing in your mind? He will come up with, sometimes he will ask you to come up with a question. That's the thing that I don't want our student to come on. He said, I want to do a research with you. Can you think of a topic that I can do? Now, this is not a good start. The good start, the question should come from the student. Then you can reverse it back to him, say, where are you interested in? Why do you want to do research? And then from those questions, you know where is his field. If he starts with usually the student would come with a dream question, not a practical question. It is our role is to taper this dream to a real question that can be feasible, practical, applicable, and done. And the first response to the student is very crucial also. If we tell them at the beginning, this is actually not real, this is theoretical, this is too much, then he might be disappointed and leave the research pathway forever. They need to be encouraged. One setting is not enough for the research questions. Usually I set them with them once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, until they hate it. Until we reach a conclusion, say, okay, now this is a proper question, it can be done, it is feasible, it is important, it is relevant. So I agree with you that some of the questions that our students come up is like a dream, and this is actually what it should be. And our role is to taper this dream to make it on the land of the practicality. And you will be surprised, actually. Most of our students, when they start with something really very broad and not specific and not clear and dreamy. And after multiple sessions with them, they will come up with something very smart and very clever. And then when you finish the research published, and then you sit with them and say, you remember the first setting, what was the plan? And now what we do? If you make a change, then this is a proper training and coaching. And this is our job.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Prof. Abdullah Asiri. Any question? Okay. Do we have mic? Okay, Dr.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله صباح الجميع بكل خير. I would like to thank the organizing committee, speakers and chairpersons in this outstanding, fantastic events actually, which is the first events in this theater. My question actually to Dr. Ali, the question is, when we rely on literature review, actually, should we rely on the recent literature review or old, or which one? Some of the research questions might depend on the literature review with many references and many research. And sometimes it's hard to put all of these literature review and to include all of these reviews and the research or manuscript. What's your advice? And I hope to hear more questions from students. Actually, thank you for all of it.
Thank you very much. This is a very, very excellent question. Thank you, Dr. Ayad. So the rule of thumb is you choose the papers that are seminal, very, very important, highly cited, written by people who are expert in the field. I cannot say a number, 10 to 15 for proposal, 10 to 15 for introduction of manuscript article, just random. But in terms of going back, you can go back to Newton or whatever, but choose the things that are really either practice changing or highly contributed. So for example, if you are writing about COVID-19, so you have to cite a New England Journal of Medicine that published the first case of COVID-19 patient, because you have to give credit. And as Dr. Abdullah said, the integrity and scientific writing is a huge part. If you don't have integrity, do not write. Join a team, an expert of people who can give a clear credit to people, whether ideas or words. Sometimes we find a very, very excellent written phrase or sentence. We copy and paste it without quotation. So we give a credit, and then we put a citation or a reference list. We give a credit for the idea, but not for the words. So there is a credit for the idea, and you have to rephrase the idea in your own language. And this is one of the big, big, big challenges in writing paper, because we grow, and you cannot be a very good academic, scientific writer in a day or two. So you need a tremendous experience. especially in biomedical science. We don't do thesis, we don't do master, PhD. We don't get extensive, comprehensive training in writing papers. So it's just a selected ideas from here and there. And so to answer your question, 10 to 15 is the random number of papers that are very, very highly cited papers. And I don't care if you go back to Newton or whatever, at least I saw Dr. Abdullah, he mentioned one of his list, reference list is the physicist, which is Madak, Albert Einstein. It's okay, because he made a huge contribution in physics or whatever. Thank you very much. There are students there who are raising their
One
hands.
more question, please. Okay, from the student side. Yeah. Mike, can we give Mike there?
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. I'm Razan Ahmed, medical student at my 5th year. And I have a question for Dr. Ali Sahel. My question is about literature review. Doctor, sometimes you find a good and fit...
Not clear, please. Can you remove the...
Okay. Dr. Ali, sometimes you find a good and fit paper for your research, but it's published in another language rather than English, or it's very old. So my question is that will or have possibility to affect your research badly?
This is very excellent question. And we always bias to literature, to English literature, because most of the literature is in English, but there are certain papers that are published in a different. I don't have a clear answer for that, but probably our experts can help me to answer. In terms of old or new, again, the rule is if the paper is highly contributing to the field, you have to cite it because it will give your paper more credit and more, I don't know, but again, always try to find the original article that has talked about this topic. So for example, childhood asthma, interleukin 6 or interleukin 5 association with childhood asthma. So you're trying to find the first paper that has raised this association or causation between interleukin 5 and, but most of the time you will not find it because whatever the reason, you choose a review article that summarize all of the interleukins and whatever things that talked about pathophysiology of asthma. So, but the first question, I have no answer for that. So.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll break the rule because, you know, again, back to you, your question, your chance.
My question for Dr. Abdullah Sabani, how can I choose the suitable style of citation for my paper?
How you can choose the style of referencing for your paper?
Yes. Citation.
Is that your question?
How can I choose the suitable style of citation for my paper?
According to the journal itself. The journal itself specifies exactly the type of style. And actually nowadays, each journal, they have their own style. And you have to go to the website of the journal, open the instructions for authors, and read their instructions about how to write your references. And at the same time, try to download one or two references from the same journal and look how they writing their style. And they try to mimic this style of referencing. The other way, which is more easier for you, is just to use EndNote or Mendeley, and you just choose the name of the journal, and it will shift all the references in 1 second to the styles you are looking for. If the journal refused to publish this paper and you need to send it to another journal, that means you need to change all the references again according to the style of the new journal. So instead of doing this hard work again, just put it in this citation management software and in 1 second you would choose the other style, and you will amend all the references with the new style. Hope this answer.
Okay, this is the end of the first session. Thank you for our speakers, and thank you for the audience. And next will be the
يتفضل رئيس الملتقى الدكتور عبد العزيز القرني لتكريم أعضاء هيئة التدريس. البروف عبد الله شعتور. موجودين كلهم. البروفيسور عبد الله عسيري. الدكتور علي آل سهيل. البروفيسور عبد الله السبعاني.